My guest today is a man of first and some pretty impressive ones. A 1977 Galesburg High School graduate, Dean McKillip was a star running back on legendary coach Kelly Kane's first football team in 1974. He led the Streaks to Galesburg's first ever appearance in the Illinois State football playoffs in 1976. He finished his Streaks football career ranked first in single season rushing yards with 1,386 his senior season. He was the first and still only Streaks athlete to throw a shot put 60 feet. He took first in the state of Illinois in the shot put in the spring of 1977. He was a starting fullback on Coach Hayden Fry's first Iowa Hawkeye football team in 1979, and he was a member of the first ever class of the Galesburg Athletic Hall of Fame. After a long career as an executive with Coca-Cola, Dean McKillip now works for Keurig Dr. Pepper and resides in Sandy, Utah, just south of Salt Lake City. Dean, thanks for joining me on WGIL.
Jay, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I think another first, as we discussed, I think it's hard to believe, but this is the first time that I've been able to interview so I'm happy to do that today.
I'm always excited. It's always fun when I get a call from Galesburg.
Okay, so let's dig right into Streaks football. You played on Coach Kelly Kane's first team in 1974. What was a young Coach Kane like as a coach, and how did he kind of transform the program?
So actually, I was on Coach Kane's second team.
Okay.
So my brother Dale and my brother Donald both played for him his very first year.
Okay.
And then I got to play for him his second year.
Okay.
But it was just a great experience. Coach Kane brought a whole new attitude. Winning needed to become a culture for football because we just didn't have a winning culture. And he brought that, continue to work for excellence to the team mentality. And, obviously the success that he and multiple teams had during his career were phenomenal. And I was just blessed to be able to play for someone like Coach Kane.
What were some of his trademarks as a coach? What do you remember about him, his style?
Coach was primarily back then a running coach. Mm-hmm. So those of us that were in the backfield, which my brothers and I were, we loved the fact that we got that opportunity to touch the ball quite a few times during the course of a game. He brought a toughness. It was all about winning at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and actually just repetition, making sure that the plays are run the way they're intended to play. Do your job. Mm-hmm. And if you do your job and everybody else does their job, success is going to follow. And it was just a great philosophy in terms of and it was what we needed for a young coach and a young team like that.
Okay. So did you play varsity as a sophomore?
No, my sophomore year, I actually played tight end. My sophomore year, I came from Costa Junior High,
right? And
so being from one of the smaller junior highs, there were a couple of folks, Barry Cheeseman, who I loved to death, by the way. Mm-hmm. He was kind of my rival for a fullback back in those days, and Barry got the nod as the fullback our sophomore year, and so I played tight end. And so one of the things that I give Coach Kane a lot of credit for is I went to him in between my sophomore and junior year and said, I just said, Coach Kane, I'd really like a chance to be the fullback. And I said, and if Barry beats me out and I don't win the job, then I'll play guard, I'll play tackle. I don't care. I just want to play. And he actually, it's one of the things I respect most about him. He listened to me and he gave me that chance. And during scrimmages heading into my junior year, I won the job, and Barry became the tight end, which he was a very good tight end. And I became the fullback. And again, I credit Coach Kane for that opportunity because he listened to my desire to want to play the position, gave me the chance, and then made the decision that I might be the right player for the fullback position.
Okay. So I believe you were 4-5. Galesburg was 4-5 your junior season. And then you guys had the breakout season in 76. You were 7-3, unbeaten, Western Big Six Conference champs, and made, the first ever playoff appearance. What were the expectations like heading into that 76 season?
Well, I think we knew we had a good team. I think we lost a couple of really close games the year before, and knew that we were on the verge of something special. And we had a lot of returning people coming back. We had a lot of juniors play on that 76 year, 75 year. Mm-hmm. And so we knew we had something special. I think the sophomore class had a good team as well. I remember Brian Scudder. He was a big lineman, and he helped fill in some of those positions. And we got off to a little bit of a slow start. We lost a couple of really close games, and I think we sat down as a team. We had a team meeting and said, we're better than this. And then we ran off like, I think it was 7 straight wins.
Yeah, I was looking at the scores. So you lost the opener 21-20 to Alton.
Yeah.
And then 13-6 to Dubuque Wahlert. So,
yeah.
I mean, what was able to, I mean, that's pretty tough to come back from, back then, not many teams made the playoffs. You pretty much had to win the conference. How did you guys turn things around after that tough start?
Again, I think it was, we had played together, most of us, our sophomore year and our junior year. And we just had a really good group of leaders. But like I said, Barry Cheeseman was on that team. Brian, forget Brian's last name with quarterback. But Kevin Lewis was on that team.
Okay.
Chuck Unger was on that team. We had a lot of good senior leadership, and I think we came together as a team and knew that we could just as easily win those close games. And I think our third game was at Burlington, I believe it was. And we decided that game that we were just not going to let up. And we just started running the football. I think I had over 200 yards that game. And every time we came off, we just reminded each other, don't stop, don't let up, let's finish it. And we did for the better part of the next 7 games.
Yeah, I was looking at the scores after that, those first 2 losses. So then you rip off wins over Alleman, Burlington, Quincy, Moline, Rock Island, East Moline, and then finish with Pekin. So then it's on to the state playoffs.
Yeah, and I think we played was it Alton?
In the playoffs?
In the playoffs?
Belleville West.
No, Bellevue West.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know the story behind that.
No, I don't. Tell me about that.
So I was healthy the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
And on in the first series against Bellevue West, I took a helmet to my thigh. And what I didn't know is I'd taken so many helmets to my thigh during the course of the season that I had a calcium deposit built up on my thigh. So for the most part, I ran on one leg that game. I played both ways back in those days. I was defensive end as well as the fullback. And Coach Kane, he pulled me from the defensive side just because I was in a lot of pain. And I don't want to say that made the difference, because you win as a team, you lose as a team, and that one person isn't going to make that big of a difference. But I was pretty much running on one leg that game. And after the season, we went and had it x-rayed, and I had like a 2-inch long, 3/4 inch tall calcium deposit on my thigh. So they told me I could either have surgery to shave it off, or just let it rest for a few months, which meant I wasn't going to be able to wrestle my senior year. And I decided I didn't want to go under the knife, and decided just to let it rest for a couple of years, and did not wrestle my senior year. I helped out once it got better. I helped out during the end of the season to wrestle with some of the guys, but ultimately I skipped my wrestling my senior year. And then, as you've already indicated, I ran track and came out healthy without having to go under the knife to clean that
Just to
up.
cap that playoff. So you lost 23-11 it was on the road, correct, at Belleville?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
down there.
Did you guys think that you would be able to go away that year, or as far as the playoffs?
Yeah, I thought with the team that we had, I truly believe we should have won that game. We had the ability to win that game. In my opinion, we were a good enough team to play with anybody that year. We had a situation where we had a fumble on the opening kickoff that they actually recovered and scored. That put us behind 7-0 early. Then I got hurt the next series. And so it was just a combination of bad luck, I would say, during that playoff game. But we thought for sure we had a chance to win that ball game. And unfortunately came up on the short end. Okay.
So before we talk about your career with the Hawkeyes, you capped your Streaks athletic career in pretty impressive fashion by winning the state shot put with a throw of 60 feet 1 inch in the spring of '77. Tell me about your track career.
Yeah, ever since junior high, back in those days, you just, whatever the sport was that season, that's what you did. So even in junior high, I ran a lot more 100-yard dash, 220, long jumped. And then my brother Dale was throwing the shot put. And I said, I'm going to try to throw the shot put. And so I got over there, and Coach Benjamin started teaching me some moves. And my junior year, I think I threw in the mid 50s and did pretty well. And then we had a tournament over in Geneseo. I think it was the Geneseo Invitational. And something clicked that day. I actually threw the shot over 61 feet that day.
Yeah, I looked that up, 61, 1.5.
Yeah.
And that's a record that still stands today.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
But it was something clicked, and I just started throwing the shot closer to 60 because I was kind of a mid 55, 56 thrower. But I also threw the discus, and I also long jumped, and I helped run in the relays. So my senior year, I actually qualified for state in the long jump, in the shot put, and the discus.
Okay.
And at the regionals, it was kind of funny. I actually did not win the regional shot put. I lost. I came in second at regionals, but I won the regional discus. And had I thrown the same distance in the discus that I did in regionals, I probably would have placed in the top 3 in the discus as well. But then I remember Coach getting a little upset with me that I did not run the regional because he wanted me to have that record there. And so I hopefully made up for it at the States. And it was actually, you don't think about the shot put being very exciting, but I think the top 4 finishers were within 2 inches of one another. So I think I was.
You mentioned Coach Benjamin. I believe that's Russ Benjamin. Who was the head coach at the time? Was it Jerry Albright?
Yes, Jerry Albright. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
He's also kind of a legend in track too.
He coached
a long time. Are you surprised that your shot put record still stands? It's the second oldest record that's still around.
Is that right?
Yeah, the oldest one is I don't know if you heard of Ira Robinson in the long jump. 1962, that record still stands. So
is that right? Is that what was his jump?
I'm not sure, but it was some outrageous thing that's probably going to be. But it's like so your record in the shot put is what, 61 1.5, and the longest throw in the last 20 years is 53.8, which was just this past spring. So it looks like it's pretty safe.
Records are always meant to be broken, but it's always fun to hear that it's still holding up out there. And I'm excited to hear that it is, quite honestly. I wasn't sure. I hadn't been keeping up with the track as much as I try to keep up with the football, but that's fun to hear.
Yeah. This is Jay Redfern. I'm talking to 1977 GHS grad Dean McKillip, the former Silver Streaks football track star who went on to play football at University of Iowa. So when did the college recruiting process start for you? What were your choices, and how did you end up at Iowa?
I would say it really started after my junior year. I had just under 1,000 yards my junior year. So I had a really good junior year on that 4 and 5 team. And so I think the fact that I was pushing 1,000 yards caught the eye of several, especially Illinois, Iowa, and Missouri teams. So I really got I got contacted by Missouri, both Illinois State, Iowa State, even got some calls from the East Coast. I was a fairly decent student, got an offer letter from Dartmouth University. And to be honest with you, just growing up as a Big Ten fan, when I got the offers from those other schools, Illinois was going through a coaching change. I believe Coach Blackman got fired in between the start of my recruiting, and then ultimately the new coach came in. And by then, Bob Cummings was the coach at the University of Iowa at the time, and they had already offered me. And just having soul searching, talking to my dad and talking to my brothers, they all said, boy, if I had a chance to play football in the Big Ten, that's where I would go.
Yeah.
And so, once I got the offer from Iowa, I accepted it and, didn't look back after that.
Yeah. I talked to Galesburg's Mr. Hawkeye, Dick Lindstrom, yesterday. He was kind of telling, he thinks he has a little bit of an assist of getting.
I do. I have to give Dick a lot of assist. I mean, he was sending tapes. He was sending a lot of film. And I have to give him a lot of credit because he was very, very instrumental in me getting noticed by Iowa.
Yeah. So it sounds like your career at Iowa really took off your junior year. I think that was 1979, and that's when Hayden Fry took over. Is that kind of correct?
Yeah, when you go in as a freshman, and I was all state, but everybody that plays in the Big Ten was all state. So when you go in that freshman year, you have a tendency just to be another guy on a number, and it was a funny situation, but Iowa had as they do today, had really good defenses back in those days too. And I remember my freshman year, they had the freshman team scrimmage against the varsity, the number 1 defensive team. And I actually had a really good scrimmage. And so I became the number 4 fullback. And not very many people know about this story, but I became the number 4 fullback, which meant I spent about half my time on the demo squad and half my time playing with the first and second team. And I think it was the Iowa State game, my freshman year, and the first team fullback sprained his ankle. His name was John Lazar. And the second team fullback dislocated his shoulder. And John went back out on the field, tried to run on that bad ankle, and he couldn't do it. So he ran off the field and didn't say anything to anybody. And I looked over at the third team guy and I said, I just looked at him. He didn't have his helmet on. He wasn't ready to play. So I just ran out on the field. And I ran maybe 4 plays. And finally, the third team guy found his helmet. And he said, hey, McKillip's in the game. I'm supposed to be in the game. So they ran him in and I got run off and I got my backside chewed out for going on the field without talking to anybody. I said, Coach, he couldn't find his helmet. So during the course of the confusion and watching film later that week, come to find out the 3 or 4 plays I ran, I did exactly what I was supposed to do, never touched the ball. And everybody found out that this other young man didn't have his helmet on and wasn't ready to play. So going into the Arizona game my freshman year, I was the John Lazar sprained his ankle. He couldn't play that week. The young man that dislocated his shoulder, he was the number 1 fullback. Well, I was the number 2 fullback going into the Arizona game my freshman year. And the very first series, the guy dislocated his shoulders again. So I played that whole game my freshman year against Arizona, and we got beat bad. I think it was like 40-7 or something like that. And on page 6, it said the only shining star was freshman fullback gains 50 yards on 9 carries. So I was going into the UCLA game my freshman year as the #1 fullback. And then the Wednesday before we left to go to California, it was the first time we had practiced on a grass field because everything back then was on the turf.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going through drills, just shoulder pads and helmets. And my foot got caught up in a hole and I went down and sprained, high ankle sprain, and never recovered from there.
Oh, wow.
So here I was thinking I was Herschel Walker going into my, 4th game of playing at Iowa, and I ended up getting hurt. And then my sophomore year, the first and second team guys came back. So I was on special teams, made all the travel squad, did all that. But then when Coach Fry came in, he must have watched a lot of scrimmage film, because at his initial speech to the team, after the speech, all the players were going up and introducing themselves. And I went up and said, "Coach Fry, my name's Dean McKillip." And he just pointed at me and he said, "Dean, you're my fullback." And from there, I started for him for 2 years.
Well, that's great. So what were some of your highlights in big games during your time with the Hawkeyes?
I think some of the highlights were prior to my playing there, and back then the fullback was a glorified guard. So one of the highlights was I was a blocking back for Dennis Mosley, and he was one of the first 1,000-yard rushers ever at the University of Iowa. So to play in front of him, and we had a great chemistry. He was a senior, I was a junior. It was just fun being on the field with somebody with that kind of talent. But one of my favorite games was we had not played Illinois my freshman and sophomore year. And we played Illinois at Illinois my junior year. And Dennis actually got hurt that game. And so all of a sudden, Coach Fry started running me. I think it was the most I ever carried the ball. I think I carried the ball like 16, 17 times and had like 80 yards rushing and scored the winning touchdown against Illinois, which obviously is a big rival for us. So that's probably one of my biggest highlights. I had a couple of really good running games. One was against Northwestern my senior year. I don't think I cracked the 1,000-yard barrier in my career, but I think I was pretty close to it. So it's kind of fun to know that you're close to that 1,000-yard career barrier.
Right. And you just missed the Rose Bowl by a year.
Oh, that was the most frustrating thing. It was kind of like that first year with Galesburg. We were 5-6 and lost a lot of close games. My junior year, we were, I think it was 5-6. And we lost 3 or 4 games by less than a touchdown. And then my senior year, I think we were 4-7, and we lost 4 games by a grand total of 11 points.
Wow.
So again, we knew we were right on the cusp of changing that. And then the year after I graduated, all those close games became Iowa wins. And it was so much fun watching those guys. I was still in Iowa City for most of that season. I was finishing up my degree. And so I got to go to a lot of those games. It was so fun watching those guys win those ball games that we weren't quite able to get over the hump my senior year. So excited for them. And then from there, Coach Fry just took off and had a great career at Iowa.
Yeah. So I believe you had some invitations to NFL rookie tryout camps following.
I did. The Bears and the Packers invited me to go. I got married very young, and I always thought I was, as a fullback, I could never get my weight. I was always in great shape and fairly strong, comparatively speaking, but I could never get my weight much over 210, 215. And I thought, and my 40 time was about a 4.7. So, I always felt like I was just a little too small and a little too slow. And I had just gotten married, and I said, I've been blessed to get through my college career pretty healthy in the overall, and just decided that maybe it was time to turn the page and start a real life with my new wife. And probably, though, I will tell you, looking back, that's probably one of the biggest regrets I had, was not at least suiting up for one, suiting up for one practice and saying I at least had the opportunity.
Yeah. Is it kind of hard to believe Galesburg hasn't really had an NFL player since Albert Kimbrough back in the 50s?
That does surprise me because I know Coach Kane had a lot of good teams after I left. There were a lot of good players, but it does surprise me. But you know, the whole state of Illinois, they're well represented with all the players we've seen. But it does surprise me because Galesburg's always been a pretty good football program, especially when you think about the 70s and 80s.
Right. Tell me a little bit about your career journey after Iowa. And you've been in the beverage industry quite a while. What's your career been like?
So again, I love the University of Iowa. They had a great job placement program even back in those days. So my first job out of college was with Procter and Gamble, and they are a phenomenal company, well known for training their people. And I had my first 8 years was with Procter and Gamble, and then Coke came calling, and I had an opportunity to go over there, and it was just one of those opportunities you couldn't refuse as a young man. And I ended up staying with Coke for 31 years and did a variety of different things. I got to go through them. I went to about 8 Super Bowls and went to a couple of World Series games. Got to go. I was down in Florida for 14 years, and the first year I went down there was when the Tampa Bay Lightning just started. I helped negotiate that contract, so I knew those people very, very well. I got a chance to be on the glass for their first ever Stanley Cup playoff championship. So through Coke, I was very, very blessed and given the opportunity to do things that as a kid growing up, you only dreamed about. And I got to live those dreams quite a bit between my own playing days and then actually getting to witness some of these phenomenal athletic feats during my career. Got to go to the Olympics, and all of that was due to my relationship with Coke and what they brought to the table. And then I retired, and then got a phone call from an old friend saying, "Hey, you're too young to retire." And I said, "Well, maybe I am." And so I've been with Dr. Pepper here for the last 4.5 years. And I keep saying, as long as they want me and I'm still having fun, we'll keep doing it.
Yeah. So let's finish with the rapid fire round. I'm going to say something. You give me your first thought. So you grew up one of 6 brothers, Dave, Dale, Dean, Donald, Dwayne, and Darren. Who was the best athlete among those?
Dale.
Okay.
Dale was by far the best athlete. I always say that I wish I had his natural athletic ability. I worked extreme, not that he didn't work hard, but he just had a natural athletic ability. And he was, I think in high school, he was like 6 foot, maybe weighed 225 and didn't have an ounce of fat on him. I just wish I was a little bit more built like that. So Dale, I think, was by far the best athlete in the family. Actually, the best athlete was probably my dad, but I'll give Dale credit for the boys. But I think of the boys, Dale was the best athlete. I think he had the most natural athletic ability. He had the body type. He was compact, strong. But then I concluded, I also saying, I think my dad was probably the best athlete in the family, and maybe my mom. So it's kind of funny because I think we got a lot of our competitive spirit from my mother and father. My dad was coaching, he played football through college, and so football was just part of our DNA at the McKillip household.
Okay. And then for equal time, you have some sisters that start with the letter D also, right?
I do. Donna and Diane and Danette.
Okay. How about your sports hero growing up?
I'll tell you, to this day, Walter Payton is my favorite professional athlete. I would watch him. He was always given 100%. He would go down on the field. He was always the first one off the ground, running back to the huddle. When he scored, he handed the ball off to the referee like it was, it was just something he did on a normal basis, and I just had so much respect for him. And still to this day, think he's probably one of the greatest athletes to ever play the game of football.
Okay. How about the biggest thrill in your sports playing career?
Probably the biggest thrill in my sports playing career. Again, I have to go back to that Illinois game my junior year, where I got to touch the ball quite a few times and score that winning touchdown. That was probably my most memorable moment from a football perspective. And then very proud of the track accomplishments, winning the state shot put championship when it wasn't expected.
Okay. How about what's the favorite stadium you ever played in?
Kinnick Stadium.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you've had a chance to go to a game over there.
I have not.
Oh my gosh. The fans are right on top of you on both sides of the stadium. The benches are less than 3 or 4 yards from where the first row of the fans are. So they are right on top of you. Even back in those days, when we weren't as successful as they are today, that stadium was packed and loud, and it will and always will be my favorite stadium to play in.
Okay. How about who's the best athlete you ever played against?
So I got to play against this guy all the time. His name was Andre Tippett.
Okay.
And Andre is a Hall of Famer, played for the New England Patriots for years. He was a defensive end. And so I was very blessed to go against what I thought was one of the greatest athletes that ever came out of the University of Iowa. And it was all scrimmage. But he was just phenomenal at what he did. And, it was so much fun. And I think I became a better blocking back having to deal with that all the time in scrimmages.
Okay. How about a must-visit restaurant when you return to Galesburg? Either that or a favorite restaurant in Galesburg.
So I will tell you, and it's disappointing that I know it's not there anymore, but the Rib Shack.
Yeah. The
Rib Shack was a very special treat every time I came back to Galesburg. Half the time I used the excuse to come back to see my family, but it was more to get Rib Shack, because every time I came in town, even if it was just for one night, we would go out to the Rib Shack and get a slab of ribs, and that was my favorite place to eat in Galesburg.
Okay. And finally, Galesburg. What's Galesburg mean to you?
I owe everything to Galesburg. Most of my family's still in Galesburg. Galesburg will always be home. When I come back, it's like I never left. I love going out. I don't get back to any games, just haven't had that opportunity. But every time I go back, it seems like I run by the school, and periodically I'll just go park by that new football stadium they have out there. And there's so many great memories in Galesburg. And like I said, it's always going to be home. And it's where my heart will be. I've already put it in my will that's where I'm coming back to when the time comes.
Okay. And that wraps up my conversation with Galesburg native Dean McKillip, a man who definitely left a legacy as an athlete with the Silver Streaks and later the Iowa Hawkeyes. Dean, like I said, I've always wanted to interview you after nearly, I've been in the business 40 years. I finally get this chance. So I'm thrilled, and I'm glad we're able to catch up, and thank you for joining me on WGIL.
Jay, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.